of the media. The media is now dominated by just literally a handful of multinational corporations. For example, the Chicago Tribune brags that on a given day, 80% of the American people get their information from a Chicago Tribune product, whether it's television, newspaper, internet, radio. And in fact, Secretary of War Donald Rumsfeld was on the board of directors of the Chicago Tribune before Bush appointed him to his current post. So what we have now is these interlocking boards of directorates. The weapons corporations, the pharmaceutical corporations, the banking corporations, the nuclear energy corporations, and the media corporations. It's all the same people. And that's who we're dealing with here in the world today. You know, the United States justifies our war in Afghanistan and then the war in Iraq as a response to the terrorists. But what we have done is we have become a terrorist nation, just as the terrorists themselves have done. We must acknowledge that today our Congress is essentially under the control of the multinational corporations. You know, when former President Eisenhower, a World War II general, left office in January of 1961, in his concluding speech to the American people, he warned us to beware of the power of the military-industrial complex. He said they were gaining undue influence in the halls of the Congress. And I'm afraid General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower's warning to us has come true.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
Keith Glennon recalls President Eisenhower's feelings about space.
He was not a space cadet. He used to say, as you look over his shoulder and say, you know, Keith, that moon's been there a long time. It's going to be there a great many eons yet, and we'll get there one day, but it isn't necessary we break our necks and break the budget to get there now.
Our Congress has been taken over by the big money and by the weapons industry, who want to use our government to further their product, if you will. And their product is war and death and chaos and control and domination around the world. So what can we do? What can the citizens of this country do in the face of this mass undertaking? Well, I think first of all that we have to recognize that we shouldn't have any illusions any longer about our country. We've got to recognize the reality of our times. Each of us individually, we have to accept the fact that our democracy is now under control of these big corporations, this new world order, if you will. And from there, we have to go and educate ourselves more about what is happening in this world. And to take that to our families, and to our neighbors, and to our schools, and to our communities, and share that with others. Because we do have the media under the control of these corporations. And so we can't expect the media is going to do this job for us. It's our job now to become the media, if you will.
The UN Disarmament Commission was meeting from during the Clinton years. This is session started, I think, January 2001, around then. And for a long time, its main issue was efforts by most of the rest of the world to try to get militarization of space on the table, on the negotiating table, and the U.S. simply blocked it. And for a friend of mine did a database search on it. It was reported abroad, but the only report in the United States that was listed on, standard databases was one small newspaper in Utah reported it. It was all on the wire services, and every editorial office had it on their desk. But you just don't report that the U.S. is blocking global efforts to save the species by preventing militarization of space. It's an extremely dangerous thing.
We have a 12-1-9-4-3-10.
And just as George W. Bush has essentially declared war on the world, I believe he and his friends in this country, in the Republican Party, the conservatives, have declared war on America as well. What we see now is an effort to essentially get rid of government's role in the lives of the people of this country, get rid of education funding, get rid of health care, impose a very mean-spirited justice system upon us, and essentially say the only role of government is to create a military, that the government has no role in the human needs area at all. You know, I think the most interesting thing for us is to answer this question. What is the #1 industrial export of America today? Of course, the answer is weapons. I like to say if it was shoes, we'd have a global marketing strategy. We're going to put a shoe on every person's foot of the world. But when weapons are your #1 industrial export, what is your global marketing strategy? And of course, the answer is chaos, madness, instability. The more there is, the more weapons you sell. Let's look at the Middle East. Today, the United States is arming everyone. We brought the Shah of Iran to power.